And the first thing that we are going to animate is the title, because we want the title to kind of move off. It's going to display off the screen and move in from the left. So it's H1 that we're going to be animating. So right below H1, this is where I'm going to specify what type of animation I want. So we do that with keyframes. And I'm just going to call this my move. And this is, we're just going to use a from and a to, just very basic keyframe animation. We're not going to specify all sorts of percentages for this. So we basically want it to go from, and then you're going to type the curly brace. You're going to do a left curly brace. It should add the right one for you. And you're just going to say left 0%. Two, going to do our left curly brace, and it should give us the right one. Now the curly brace, you do have to press shift to get at that key, and it's right next to the letter P. And this is going to be to a left at 20%. So it's going to start at 0. It's going to move in from the left to about 20% of the page. So that's the animation. Now we want that animation to be applied to H1. So in H1, this is where we say animation, my move, and we're going to give it the number of seconds. So we're using kind of the shortcut here. So instead of saying animation dash name and animation dash duration, we're doing the 2-for-1 here. So we're just using animation, the name is my move, and it's going to play for 10 seconds. Now in order to get the animation to stay where it finishes, so at 20% it's done, in order for us to get the title to stay there, we have to say animation fill mode forwards. And I'm going to just comment this out and run it without the, without the command, so you can see what happens, and then we will remove the comments and run it so you can see what happens when we have the command in. Let's save our changes. And we are going to open up this form. So let me reload this so you can see how it kind of starts at the left, goes over towards the center. And if I have the fill mode commented out, which we did have, and then that got lost. Let me save this. Picking the wrong one, there it is. You can see how it goes back to the beginning, and that's really not what we want. We want it to kind of stay where the animation finishes. So I'm going to kind of uncomment this out and save it. And then we'll reload, and you can see that with that in place, when you select forwards or both, it actually will stay in that end location or that end spot. So we've got a couple more things to animate in here. One task is done. We animated the title. Moving on to task 2, which is we're basically going to animate all of the paragraphs in the browser window so they appear to kind of slide across the page and into place. So that is going to require animating our paragraph tags. And we do not have much here for paragraph other than right now we have a font weight of 900. So we are going to add to this. And so we're going to add the animation duration, which is 3 seconds, and we'll add the name. We're just calling it slide in. Now, could you have just used animation colon, slide in, and 3 seconds? Yes. You could use the shortened version of this. Either one is acceptable. Okay, so whatever makes more sense to you is fine. And we're going to use at keyframes. Slide in is the name of this animation. And we're going to say from margin left, 200%, width, 300%. That's our starting point. And we're going to a margin left of 0 and a width of 100%. Okay, so we are starting basically with the text way over on the right. Because if you have a 200% left margin, that's enormous, okay? Because 100% is your page. So it's bigger than the page. So basically our text is going to be shoved way off to the right. And the width of the entire page is 300%. So huge width, and it's basically off the page. So that's going to animate to a margin left of 0. So we go from having the margin way the heck over here in Never Never Land to 0 and a normal width of 100%. So it's going to make it appear like all of the paragraphs are sliding into place. That is the effect we're going for. So we are applying slide in to our P selector, which is for paragraphs. So let's go ahead and save this. And let's reload. Okay, so you can see how it kind of looks like. Watch down here. Everything is just sliding into place. It's coming from way off on the right because we set that left margin at 200%, which is ginormous. Okay, so we've got the title animated, we've got the paragraphs animated. What we're going to do next is we're going to animate, submit, and reset. We're going to make them get bigger, and while they are getting bigger, we're going to make them rotate 360 degrees. So when we point, they're basically going to spin and get bigger. Okay, that is what we are going for. So we are going to have to create a hover style for these input buttons. And then we're going to have to associate transition and transition timing with those. So first we are going to set up the input button hover state. So this does require that you know how you're styling those buttons. So if you come down and you look at your buttons, I have a class of input button and I have an ID of button. So if I come back up here and I look, so here is input button, and that is where I'm specifying the color, background color, the color for the text, the font. This is where those buttons are being styled. So right below there, this is where I'm going to say dot input button colon hover. Oops, it does help if you spell things right. There we go, hover. Now inside the curly braces, I'm going to increase the width. Right now the width is 100 pixels. I can see that by looking here. I'm going to increase the width to 300 pixels while this animated transition is playing. And I'm going to change the height to 90 pixels. So basically, I multiplied each by 3. Okay, so the width times 3 is 300. And then the height, which is 30 times 3, is 90. Okay, and I did that right in there. So the other things I'm going to change, I'm going to make sure the color of the text is black so we can still read it, even though it's going to be spinning and getting bigger. And I want to use transform, rotate. And I want it to do the full circle, so it's going to be 360 degrees. So that is what I want to have happen to the button when I'm pointing at it. Gets bigger, spins around in a circle. So I've got to connect this with the input button itself. And I do that using transition. So for the width modification, I want that to take 1 second. For the height, I want that to take a second. And for transform, for that property, I want it to go for a second. Now, could I specify different numbers? Absolutely. And should I fix the typo here? Absolutely. You do not want typos or it won't work. Okay, so we've got transition, the width, height, and rotation are all going to occur during a 1 second interval. And as far as my timing function, I would like for it to start out slow and then speed up. So I'm going to use ease in for that. So I'm going to save this, and we are going to reload that page. And I'm getting all of my fun sliding animation. And then we will point here, and you can see what happens. It gets bigger and it goes in a circle. How fun is that? Okay, so that is the animation that we needed for our form. And again, you might have called the styling that you're doing for submit and reset different than me. I called mine input button. So you're going to have to actually look in your code and find where you styled those.